Okay, so Life of the Buddha, Part 2. So after leaving home, the Buddha met this King Bimbisara, who was the ruler of the King of Magadha, one of the very powerful kingdoms during that time, and of which Buddha's father was one of the principalities. So this king was so impressed with Siddhattha that he offered him half of the kingdom to rule. So of course Siddhattha rejected this offer because he wanted to seek enlightenment, or the last thing he wanted was to go and rule another kingdom. So but Siddhattha promised to visit again if he should eventually attain enlightenment. So this is the place, he was born here, Lumbini, then Kapilavastu. So he wandered all the way down here to Bodh Gaya, the place of enlightenment. Later on, this king, it's quite interesting that he became one of the Buddha's strongest supporters. Unfortunately, he was killed by his own son, but this son also became a supporter of the Buddha. So after enlightenment, this Buddha returned to visit King Bimbisara, and this king donated a large park called the Bamboo Grove or Veludana, given to the use of the Buddha and his monks, or the Sangha. For those of you who may not be familiar, Sangha means the community of monks. So it's quite nice. That's why I encourage people to go to India. This is a picture actually of this bamboo grove. This is the lake, the grounds, all the bamboos. Quite a very nice place. So, coming back to the story. So on his journeys, the prince, seeking enlightenment, he went to come under the teachings of several of these other ascetics. So two of these ascetics had their own meditation groups and large groups. So one was called Alara Kalama, the other was called Udaka Ramaputta. So he studied under them, and he, according to the stories, he achieved what they could teach, everything they could teach. So achieved the highest attainments and was even offered to take over their schools. But the Buddha rejected them because he found that the highest level still is not enlightenment, and still could not lead him to the truth to escape from samsara, to find true peace and happiness. So he continued his wanderings and joined by 5 companions who later on also became his close friends. So they practiced all this extreme asceticism, extreme ascetic practices, which is actually still going on today. I can show you. So in that time, asceticism and self-mortification, self-torture are still considered by some of these Indian teachers to be the means for self-purification. So these are some of the ascetics you can see today. Quite interesting, they can do all sorts of things, twist themselves into all sorts of positions. He's a child ascetic, another ascetic. Nowadays you can see these kavadis also. So this is part of the culture. They believe that pain, self-torture, that is the way to self-purification. Another one, you can see nowadays, they put the hooks in themselves and then they pull the cards and all that. So these festivals you can still see even in Singapore. So for 6 years before he became a Buddha, Siddhattha did all these practices, sleeping on thorns, not breathing, eating just a few grains of rice a day. So he became so skinny, so emaciated, that his skin actually turned black, and he could touch his backbone through his belly. That means he touched his stomach, he can actually feel his backbone. So he became little more than a skeleton, almost on the verge of death because of these practices. So if you go to the museums or even in some of the shops in India, you can see a lot of these statues, carvings. This is one of the pictures, these are the statues, how the Buddha looked like when he was doing these ascetic practices. So quite scary, a lot of people are scared to see all these statues. This is another one, it's also skinny, nothing but skin and bones. And then, like I said, the stomach is so drawn in that it's just close to the backbone. So, but the Buddha realized that these extreme practices, self-torture, was not the way to enlightenment. And also, a life of luxury and indulgence is also not the way of enlightenment. These are considered the two extremes. One is self-mortification, the other is luxury and self-indulgence. He began to realize that he needs a fit and healthy body, because if you don't have a fit and healthy body, how can you think clearly? You can't think clearly when you be blur all the time. I'm sure you all know. You don't eat enough, sick, all that. You can't even think straight, right? You're too hungry to even think properly. So he decided to take some food to nourish his body and thereby his mind. Previously he was joined by these 5 companions, right? Because of the nature of the culture at that time, the more ascetic practices you did, the more you tortured yourself, they said the better it is. So since he started to take food, then he thought, oh, he's gone back to his soft life, he's given up trying to attain enlightenment. So these 5 companions, they actually abandoned him. So now Siddhattha was left on his own, no more companions. He eventually found his way to Bodh Gaya, a village as I showed you on the map. So in this village, a girl called Sujata offered him some milk rice as he was meditating under a tree. This girl thought he was a deity, one of those spirits or devas. So this is the place I mentioned, Bodh Gaya. In Bodh Gaya, you can see this shrine in one of the fields. They have lots of these places. So this shrine is depicting the story of Sujata and the milk rice. I went on this trip, it's quite interesting. 2 of the monks that came, one is English, one is a Canadian. So it's quite encouraging to see so many of these Western people turning to Buddhism and actually really renouncing and becoming monks. So after a meal and a rest, then Siddhartha proceeded to a Bodhi tree to meditate. And according to the legends, a grass cutter called Sotiya offered him some grass to sit on so that he can meditate in a little bit of comfort. This shrine also shows the Sotiya offering some grass to the Buddha. But again, these are actually mostly legends, because in the Pali Tipitaka, the Pali canon, none of this really took place. So as I was saying just now, these are things people use to dress up the story of the Buddha to make it more interesting. But what happens is that, in India, they see so many tourists coming and all that. So they build all these shrines, the tourists come in, and tourists got a lot of money. So all these people, they come, they donate money and all that. But I think it's good to see, it's interesting to see. So when you go, you just take it into the spirit of the thing. Okay, Sujata's shrine, Sotiya's shrine. So you go, you pay respects and all that. It's very interesting. It's really very nice. So under the Bodhi tree, Siddhartha vowed that he will not get up from that seat, even though his flesh and body would dry up, until he attained enlightenment. So that's his determination. So he went into deep meditation. But just as he is about to attain enlightenment, Mara and his forces attacked him to try to get him to give up. I'm sure you know some of these stories. Mara is supposed to be the forces of evil, the forces of temptation, and then attack him to disturb his meditation. So this is quite a nice picture. The Buddha attacked by Mara. There's, they send the daughters of Mara, the dancing girls, to distract the Buddha. One way of looking at this is that this is just figurative. Again, not necessarily there's really a Mara come to attack the Buddha in such a situation. It's more likely that this is how the Buddha described his thoughts at that time, his state of mind at that time. That he's meditating, he think of this, he think of that, he think of all these luxuries, he think of the women that he left behind, he think of the pain. So not necessarily Mara really attacking, but it's just a state of the mind that they put it in such a way that the forces of Mara attack him. I'm sure you all know nowadays, so you're trying to do something, you're tempted to do this, tempted to do that. So they just simply said, Mara is attacking you, you're disturbed by Mara. So you want to do meditation, right? But then, you think you want to go and do something else, go out with friends or what. So there's Mara, right? So you can look at it in that way. Not necessarily there's a real Mara, but just a figure of speech. Mara can be taken symbolically to mean the personification of the distractions, the doubts, the temptations in Siddhartha's mind coming in the way of enlightenment. Because he did not know whether he really enlightened. Maybe he thought, why not just give up, go back to his home, go back to his family, go back to lead a luxurious life. So this is exactly what Mara means. However, deep in meditation, doing the mindfulness of breathing, he overcome all these distractions, overcome all these temptations, and then finally attained enlightenment and became the Buddha. So, in the process of enlightenment, the Buddha saw three things. He saw his past lives. He saw how beings arise and pass away according to their own karma. And he realized the way out of suffering, which is the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. So these are the three things he saw in life. He saw on the night of his enlightenment. His past lives, he see how beings arise, they are born, and then they pass away, and then they arise where, in what conditions, according to their karma. And then he also realized how to get out of samsara, which is the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. If you go to India, you can actually see this place called Bodh Gaya. This is the Mahabodhi temple from a distance. Really very nice. It's been restored recently. I think decades ago it was really in bad shape. But over the last few decades it's much, much better now. So if you all go, the conditions are much, much better. This is the spot in the temple denoting where the Buddha got enlightenment. It's part of the shrine there. And then you can see this is the Bodhi tree. All the monks. Actually it can be quite crowded. All the Tibetan monks, all the monks, in fact all the lay people, they sit around here, meditate, chant, pay respects. So it's a really, really beautiful atmosphere. In fact, when I went last time, we stayed overnight in this place. You're allowed to stay. You can go there at night, stay till 6. But once you're inside, then you cannot go out now. But got toilet and all that, so not a problem. It's very cold. You can meditate there. It's really, really very nice. But you must bring a sleeping bag. It is cold, mosquito repellent and all that. So if you meditate there, it's a fantastic atmosphere. The energy is really, really so good. So try and go at least once in your life to all these holy places. This is the best part of the temple. It looks quite big from the outside, but inside is quite small. This is the shrine room, and it's much smaller than this place. Probably a quarter of this hall only. If you all remember, just a quarter of this hall. And this is the statue in front, and then you can also sit around and then meditate here. So, like I said, the energy is fantastic. Once you go there, you start meditating, you really don't feel like going back until you have to. So there's this other story about the Buddha. Because after the Buddha attained enlightenment, he spent 7 weeks doing this and that. So during the 6th week of enlightenment, there was a great storm. And the stories go that there was this Naga King. Naga means snake. There was this Naga King called Mucalinda. He came out of his abode to coil around the Buddha to protect him from the storm. So at the end of the week, according to the stories, King Mucalinda appeared before the Buddha as a young man and then joined hands and paid his respects. So let's go into this a little bit. Again, what I want to try and do here is to present Buddhism in a more rationalistic way. So really got all this. You see these paintings, statues, all that. Do we have any here? I think maybe in the shrine there may be a statue of the Buddha and sheltered by the Naga King. So you all believe got all these Nagas, Naga Kings and all this other. Who say no such thing? Who say got such thing? Hey, you all must raise your hand. Okay, who say got Nagaland in India? I mean, who say there's such a place as Nagaland in India? Nobody. Who say don't have? One. And then the rest of you? Not sure. Just anyhow guess. So who say got Nagaland in India? You say got Nagaland. Okay, who say don't have Nagaland? Quick. 1, 2, don't have Nagaland. Then the rest of you. So why you say there's Nagaland in India? Just guess. Okay, fair enough. I think the majority of you think no such thing as Nagaland in India, right? You say don't have. You've been to India, right? You've been to India, right? So 3 of you have been to India, all say no Nagaland. Okay, I'll show you Nagaland. Nagaland. There? So in India, this is India, there's actually a place called Nagaland in India. It's a very small state, right to the extreme northeast. Tourist map 207. So actually got Nagaland, right? Then Nagaland. Okay, step by step. Was the Buddha protected by the Naga? We go step by step. Okay, first I show you really got Nagaland. Naga people. These are the inhabitants, the tribal people of this state. Because it's very close to Burma. So some of the people like Burmese like that, those tribal aboriginal people. So this is Nagaland. These are Naga people. Another picture of Naga people. So I show you got Nagaland and Naga people, right? Got Naga city in India. This is Naga city. Nagpur means Naga city, city of the Nagas. So there's actually Nagaland, there's actually Naga city, right? So my point is this. Let's go back. 6 years of enlightenment, there's a great storm. Naga King Mucalinda came up with abode, called around the Buddha, so on and so forth. I already showed you there's a place called Nagaland, populated by many Hill tribes. They call themselves Nagas. There's also a city called Nagpur. It's a very big city, industrial city. I think one of the 5th or 6th biggest cities. In any case, Nagpur is a major city in India. So it means city of the snakes. So what this means is that Naga land, Naga city, Naga people is something common in India. It's a common term. Because India in any case is full of snakes. So snakes are common, right? So it's not unusual for people to call themselves this Nagaland. A lot of snakes there, so Nagaland. So the people that stay there, Naga people. So it is possible, in my view and also some people think this way how you rationalize this story, it is possible that a tribe or community of people called Nagas gave shelter to the Buddha in bad weather, and this became exaggerated or misunderstood. That means after the Buddha's enlightenment, he traveled here, he go there, then big storm. So these kind people, Nagaland, Naga people gave him shelter, then in the end, become like them. So what I'm trying to do in this part of this course is don't go and follow one of these fantastic stories. There's usually highly likely a rational explanation. This is a beautiful statue somewhere in Burma. I just found it today. Very nice, multicolored. It looks very new. The Buddha, depicting the Buddha sheltered by the Naga. So what happens over the last 2,500 years is a lot of stories become exaggerated, they become misunderstood, and possibly this is one of the stories of Buddha sheltered by Naga people. Really such thing, in the end, they take it as such. Really the snake come out and shelter the Buddha. But which is not really surprising, because olden days when people tell stories, they exaggerate, so it's quite normal. So like when olden days, all those village people, you just don't tell them, the Nagas, village people set shelter him, they try and make it into something very magical, very fantastical, that the Buddha is so great, or that even the Naga king come and shelter him and then call around him and protect him. So which is how this story possibly originated. I'm not saying that for sure this is the origin of the story, but this is a possibility. So do you get my point now? Okay, any questions so far? Yes? Nagas mention the 31 planes of existence. Firstly, 31 planes of existence do not mention Nagas. They mention all the other realms, all the animal realms, hell realms, spirit realms, asura realms, human realms, the deva realms, but no Naga realm as far as I know. There's no particular Naga realms in the 31 planes of existence. Oh, okay. You're saying the 4 great kings, right? Okay, the 4 great kings, they say one of the land is the Naga lands. Okay, I see what you mean. So in the heaven realms, the Chatu Maharajika heaven, the next heaven above us, is supposedly ruled by the 4 great kings. Yeah, right. This is one of the 31 planes of existence, the next highest heaven. I'll be connecting a lesson specifically on 31 planes of existence later on, and I'll go into this in a bit more detail. Well, you're right. In one of the realms, possibly one of the kings is in charge of the Naga realm. Possible, I'm not writing it all, but again, some of these things you just take it, okay, you just listen, and it's good to know less about it. Whether it is Nagas or not, I can't really tell. But I mean, some people do believe that there are these spiritual beings called Nagas. I gave a talk recently at Sarnath. I explained this story more or less exactly in this way. So one of the ladies said, hey, they really see this spiritual Nagas from those Thailand or what, Mesa or all that. I really got such thing. Well, I'm not saying you don't have such things. It is possible that there's such things. In Buddhism, you don't write everything off. Possible that there's really this story happened. But if you don't want to accept this story, if you want to be rationalistic, this is an alternative explanation, and that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying no such thing, really no such thing as spiritual beings called Nagas and all that. Right? So it is possible. So it is possible that one of the realms from the four great things also has a realm called the Naga realm. Okay, I hope I answered your question. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. So after spending some time enjoying the bliss of his enlightenment, the Buddha set out for Isipatana, or the deer park, at Sarnath. This is another place in India, to rejoin his former companions, because as you imagine, after the Buddha got enlightened, he's so happy he wanted to share his teachings with people who could understand them. So he actually thought of sharing the teachings with his two other teachers, but they passed away. Then he went to look for his 5 friends. So these 5 friends, they didn't welcome him because, as I mentioned just now, they thought that he went back to his life of comfort. And then they saw him closely, they saw his confident manner, they saw the glow about him, so they accepted him. So where are we now? Just now we are at Lumbini, Sarnath. Now we come down to Lumbini, Kapilavastu. Now we come down to Bodh Gaya, and Sarnath is here. So we travel all the way to Sarnath. This is the Ganges River. This is another city called Varanasi. I will go through these places in a bit more detail as the lessons go by, so you can get a clear picture of all these really interesting places. So when the Buddha met them, he taught them his first discourse, the first teaching, called the Dhammacakkapavattana Sutta. It's called Setting the Wheel of the Dhamma in Motion discourse. We'll be going through this next week, Four Noble Truth, Eightfold Path, the 3 characteristics. So in any case, he gave this first teaching. Then Kundana, the name of the wisest of the 5 ascetics, he became a stream enterer after listening to this teaching. So who knows what is the meaning of stream enterer? Sotopan. Okay, anyway, I'll be explaining these terms as you go along. What is stream entry and Arahan and all that. So not to worry, I'll be going into more detail. This is a very nice picture of the 5 ascetics being taught by the Buddha. So this is a deer park. There were actually deers there at that time. And after the first sutta, the Buddha gave his second teaching called the Anatta Sutta, or the discourse on non-self. After this sutta, all his 5 companions, they became enlightened. So now there are 6 arahants. Arahants means enlightened beings. 6 arahants in the world, including the Buddha himself. So this is a picture of the stupa at Sarnath during my tour. It's quite a big group. I went with the Buddhist Fellowship a few years ago. I think many of these temples, they conduct tours there, Buddhist Fellowship, Buddhist Library, few places. I don't know whether this temple conducts or not, but do you all conduct? You all? Heaven, is it? Oh, okay. Maybe if there's enough people to go, you all should get a group together and then go. Quite good. Very fulfilling, very interesting. This is a temple next to Sarnath, next to the stupa. This inside the temple, one of the most beautiful Buddha statues, and one of my favorite types of Buddha statues. So basically, if you're foreigners, the monks will let you go inside there and then pay respects and make offerings. So normally the people will stand here, but then the monks allow us to go right inside and we did some chanting and all that, so it was really quite nice. Close up of the statue. All these things have different meanings. And this mudra, the hand signs are called mudras. This mudra, this hand sign means the turning of the wheel. Some people say it's unknotting. So for example, there's a string with a knot or cloth with a knot. So what the Buddha is doing is untying the knot so that people can understand the truth. So there's different types of mudras. If you see all the various statues and all that, you can see this is the statue dispelling fear, the sitting one like that. This means meditation. If the arms are like that, it means teaching. This means wisdom, preaching the law, like I said, the turning of the wheel. This is the sitting one. I like this one very much also. You know, the Buddha sitting there, one hand on his lap, one hand touching, very, very peaceful, calling the earth to witness. Because what happens is that after he got his enlightenment, those heavenly beings did not really believe, some of them did not believe that he was enlightened. So what the Buddha did was he just touched them and called the earth to witness, and then the story goes, the earth shook, and then in recognition of his enlightenment. So this one, then this one, exactly. So this is the calling the earth to witness. See, the one hand on the ground and then the other hand in the meditation pose, exactly as this statue here. So the standing ones are like that, the sitting ones like that, and of course, you know, the reclining ones are here. So if you study this, then you know each statue actually has a different meaning to it. It's quite interesting. So after enlightenment, the Buddha began 45 long years of teaching, wandered throughout India, throughout northern India. So one of the places he spent a long time was called Jetavana Grove, near to the city of Savatthi. He spent 19 years there, 19 rain retreats. How the monks count is that if they stay at a certain place during the rainy season, that counts as 1 year. So this place was the second monastery donated to the Buddha. The first one was donated by King Bimbisara, the bamboo grove. We saw the pictures there just now. This one, the second one, was given by a millionaire called Anathapindika, the Buddha's greatest lay supporter. Well, the story goes is that this Anathapindika, he wanted to donate this park to the Buddha, but this park was owned by a prince or something like that. So the prince didn't want to sell the land. So this Anathapindika put the gold, cover the whole land except for a certain part, and then he offered it to the prince, and then the prince said, okay, he'll sell the land to this Anathapindika, and then the part which he did not cover, the prince who owned the land previously, he covered it with gold, and then they gave this land to the Buddha. So again, these are stories which well, you can just take it as stories, because I think it's quite impossible to cover the entire land, because the place is huge. I'll show you a picture. It's huge. Even nowadays, so you cover the whole land is practically impossible. But what is highly likely is that this Anathapindika paid a high price to buy over the land from the prince, and that's how they derive the story that the land was so valuable, and then which was donated to the Buddha for his use. So this is quite far. It's actually here, Savatthi. So from Bodh Gaya, Sarnath, then he went all the way to Savatthi here. It's a very long train journey. What happens when we travel the last time is that we flew to New Delhi and then went up, slowly went up to Savatthi, and then we went this way. So, but this is quite a long way by bus. I think about 12, how long was it? 12 hours by bus, something like that. So it's quite a taxing journey, but it's well worth it because it's a very beautiful place. It's cold. It may not look cold, but I think it's maybe 10 degrees or less at that time. You go in winter because hot season is far too hot. Rainy season impossible to go. So the best time to go is actually November, December, January, February. But if you go, try to go late October, early November. Because too cold also, it's freezing. And then it's really, really crowded. December is peak season. You want to go to these places to pay respect, you also got to go and queue up, wait your turn. So if you go before the peak season, around late October, early November, it's not so cold and it's not so crowded. So this is the place people meditating. Very, very beautiful, very peaceful place. huge place. So that's why I'm saying it's impossible for the whole place to be covered with gold. Maybe, maybe a small part. But it's up to you to believe the legends if you want to. So, the Buddha, after his enlightenment, he had two chief disciples. They are called Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Moggallana. Initially, they were followers of Brahmanism, but they converted to Buddhism. These are the two famous disciples. Sariputta, known for his wisdom, Venerable Moggallana, known for his psychic powers. If you read into this later on, you get to know about them more and more. So they are usually represented at the main altars of Theravada temples. You can tell the difference because Venerable Moggallana usually portrayed as the darker figure. Some is even dark blue. So now when you see these shrines, you know who is who. So there's the Buddha, Sariputta, Moggallana. So Moggallana is either very dark or he's covered, or he's dark blue covered, the two main disciples. For Mahayana it's a bit different. They don't have Sariputta and Moggallana. They have Ananda and Mahakassapa for their own reasons. Well, after 45 years, the Buddha passed away into final Nibbana at the age of 80 in a small place called Kusinara. He was cremated nearby and his remains distributed among the representatives of the 8 kingdoms. Because during that time there were many small kingdoms. Many of them also supported and followed Buddhism. So the relics distributed among the followers. Very few genuine relics. But the possibly few genuine ones are still in the Indian Museum, the National Museum of India in New Delhi, which you see all these relics. Some of you may have gone to this relics exhibition. Relics here, relics there, all over these relics. I think you can discount, 100%. I wouldn't even say 99%. I think for these relics, likely you discount 99.9999% because just take it with a pinch of salt. Don't follow these relics too much. Because in fact, the Buddha himself said, what is important is practicing his teachings. You don't even need Buddha statue. You don't even need this, you don't even need that. What's important is the practice. When the Buddha was alive, there were some people who went to visit him, admire him. He also forceful character, attractive character. So the Buddha said, hey, you look at me for what? I'm just a body, aging, bones, skin, blood, 32 parts of the body. I'm just a bag of skin, bones, flesh. You look at me for what? You go and practice better kind of. Right? So this is a Buddha's attitude. You don't need all these things to practice. What counts is yourself. In fact, during the Buddha's time, some of them from far away place, Buddha, Bante, they call him Bante. Bante, since you're so far away, we are so far away, when you're not around, can we make a statue of you, please? Buddha, what did the Buddha say? No statue. So during the Buddha's time and after the Buddha's time, how was the Buddha represented? Usually by the Bodhi tree, footprint, no statue. The Buddha himself did not allow people to have statues. So how come nowadays got statues? Everywhere statue. Because people need this sort of a thing. If you are a real practitioner, like somebody asked me, hey, you meditate, you must have a statue, you must go to the temple, all this, all that. 4 walls you can meditate, bus stop you can meditate, anywhere you can meditate, right? Face the wall you can meditate. You don't need these things. These are just external things. But not everybody is like that. Some people, they do need these things as a symbol to remind themselves. That's why it's okay like me at the Buddha statue. It's only a few hundred years after the Buddha's passing away, then in those Afghanistan, those parts, those Europeans, they came out with some really nice Buddha statues. And that is how all these Buddha statues came into being. So not necessarily in the practice of Buddha statue, but it's good as a symbol, a reminder, nothing more than that. Okay, so this is Kusinara, the temple by Kusinara. This is a reclining Buddha. Really powerful place. For me, there's in India there's 4 main places we have to visit, like the place of birth, Lumbini, the place of enlightenment, Bodh Gaya, the place of first teaching, Sarnath, and the place of passing away, Kusinara. When you go, you find that different people feel different things at different places. Some people, they feel very emotional at Bodh Gaya. Some people Sarnath. Some people at this place. The energy is so great. For me, you can feel the tears at this place. So it's really fantastic. So people, they just sit around here, they chant, they meditate, they pay respects. So this is a picture of possibly the only real Buddha relics possibly lah. I mean, there may be others, we are not sure, but this is likely the genuine relics in India, the Museum of New Delhi. And then we were there, we met some Tibetan monks, and then we chanted, we did some chanting, did some meditation around the relics here. Have you all been to the Tooth Relic Temple anywhere in Singapore or Sri Lanka and all this other? Okay, if you want to believe by all means, but it's just a symbol. Okay, so we're coming to the end of this talk. As the Buddha passed away, he said a few last words which are very important for all of us. All things are subject to change. Everything changes. We strive on with diligence for our own salvation. So everything is subject to change. We strive on, we work hard, we save ourselves. That's his last words, our famous last words to keep in mind. Okay, so that's the end for this particular talk.